Kia ora, BariBabes. Welcome back to another BariBabes Podcast, a space where we go beyond the surgery, beyond the scales, and into the mindset, habits, and heart of what it really takes to live your best life after weight loss surgery. I'm your host, Peat, bariatric nurse specialist, mindset coach, and someone who's walked this journey just like you. The messy parts, the healing, and everything in between. This episode is one that's going to hit close to home today.
Hi! Hi everybody, welcome to another podcast episode with Lauren, Peat and Maree, our lovely head coach, and I'm so excited to be here today. It's a beautiful, well, here at least, I don't know about you, Maree, but it's a beautiful May day here. It's absolutely stunning, freezing cold, but absolutely stunning. So we are really kicking into like the thick of winter. I reckon we're like really starting to hit that coldness, but the weather's been beautiful, which has been helping with the moods, I think. But I've been tired. I've been really, really tired lately, which has been dumb. And, you know, when you get tired, I feel like that's really opens the door for some of those challenges with eating, and really can sabotage your journey quite quickly. I know for me, like I haven't been sabotaging, thankfully, because of the tools I have, but I also know that old me definitely would have been like, it's cold, I just want to be cozy in my jammies, watching TV, eating crappy food, because that's going to make me feel good. But no, that is not how we succeed long term. And yeah, although I do still love watching Netflix in my jammies snuggled up by the fire, but I will not be partaking in all that crappy food because it doesn't make me feel any better. But yeah, what about you, Maree? How are you finding the start of, it's not quite winter here, but it is kind of headed towards winter quite quickly.
Yes, it's definitely gotten a lot colder at night for sure, but it is also beautiful here as well. So I'm loving that. I think it's really interesting. So luckily I don't feel too tired, but I do find though that when I am tired, that is when I really struggle with doing the things that I want to do to kind of stay on track. So it is super important. So I love that you've got those tools so that you have not sabotaged, because you know it can be as simple though as being too tired to even go to the grocery store, right? Like, and then if you haven't got the foods that you want to be eating, then that's when you go for, oh, should I just get Uber Eats, you know? And so it can be so easy.
That's funny because that popped up in our Success Club meeting last night actually, and we meet 5 nights a week for, well, 5 days a week, and 4 nights now as of this week. And why I bring this up is actually someone was talking around the grocery shopping, and traditionally, I don't know if anyone knows this or not, but I used to do monthly grocery shopping up until like a month or two ago, and it was great. I did it for over a year. But the biggest issue lately is the supermarket's been sending me really short-dated food. And so what I was finding is by the end of the month, like everything had kind of expired, and it really sucked. Because you're like, I've already spent all this money on food that I'm having to now chuck out. So I actually was talking to my financial advisor. She's great. Shout out if you're listening to Lara. But what I was talking to her and she's like, well, how can we get you back on track with your shopping? Because I was moving to daily, almost daily supermarket shopping and just buying for what we needed that night. And it's fine, but it's a very expensive way to do it. Like these days, going to the supermarket here in New Zealand, at least, as you know, like $100 adventure just for very little food. And it just, yeah, it was getting kind of frustrating, and also my ADHD brain, very overwhelming, right? Like where you're just like, oh, I'm constantly having to think about what I'm going to have and do we have stuff, and it was just hard. So anyway, Lara was like, well, how can I help make this easier for you so that you're not spending all this extra money that you don't need to at the supermarket? And I was like, okay, well, she's like, do you want to move back to monthly grocery shopping? And I was like, no, I don't think that's working anymore. And she's like, okay, so what are you gonna do? And I was like, okay, let's go to fortnightly. So much like I coach you guys, I have coaches in my life too, right? Who are like, how can we help? How can we make this work? And I was like, okay, let's go fortnightly. So I did my first fortnightly shop on Friday, and it arrived on Saturday, and I feel really good about it. And actually, one of the big things that I actually did last week as well is I bought a meat box from online from a local farm out the back of Taranaki, which is very cool. So not our family farm, but another business basically that supplies meat, and the meat is really good. And I think I spent just over $300 and got, I try and work out how many meals worth, quite a bit of meat. And you could switch out what meat you wanted. And I'm really excited to have beef back in my life because beef is so expensive, but it's something that brings me a lot of joy. And traditionally we eat a lot of mince, but last night I made a beef stew with the casserole kind of diced meat. And it was so yummy and so much better than the supermarket meat. Like wasn't full of fat and it just was delicious. And so I'm really happy with that choice. And so, that will easily last us longer than the fortnight that all the meat that we got for that $300. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with that decision. And I feel calmer and more relaxed because I actually have a house full of food and I planned out all my meals for the 2 weeks, so I know what we're having every night and I can mix and match. Like I haven't allocated that on Friday we're having this meal. It's like actually I get to choose each day what I want. And if we've got leftovers, even better. It's going to last even longer. So I'm really excited for that. And I just feel a little bit more in control. I think the last week has been very big for me around gaining some control back, getting ahead of the grind in both business and my life. And yeah, so that's been kind of cool. What are you doing at the moment, Maree, to set yourself up for success over the winter period? Because it can be a challenge, right?
It totally can. And I think for me, I'm really trying to just prioritize the stuff that I need to do. And so, like, you had made a comment, and I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but it was almost, and you probably will remember it better, but, like, how busy are you actually? And so, and I was feeling really busy, but actually I wasn't, well, I was a bit busy, but not as busy as what I felt. And it was because I actually wasn't prioritizing what was needed kind of that day or the next day. And so I've really been doing that since you said it. And I've had that in my mind, which has been really awesome. So it was, yeah, definitely something that just stood out to me. And that's just made it so much easier. But it's kind of the same in a sense, like you've gone and said that, with you ordering this meat and going to the fortnightly, that's just taken away so much of that mental chatter, yeah. And so this is the same way with me prioritizing. It's taken away a lot of that because I'll be like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this in a week. And, you just kind of are thinking all of these things and then you actually get that task paralysis and you're not actually doing anything. And then it's so stressful. But now I don't have to worry about it. I'm just like, no, let's just focus on one thing at a time. So that's been really helpful. And I also think the other great thing, like with doing, especially with the meat package and buying fortnightly, is it does save money, right? And, because you're not then having to go and buy stuff that you wouldn't normally buy. And so that's really awesome. And I think sometimes it can be quite hard to remember that actually making decisions like that, while it may seem a little bit more expensive at the beginning, it's actually gone and saved you money. So, and for me, it's gone and saved me stress, and thinking power. So then I've got more energy to do other things that I want to do and spend my time on. So that's been going really well for me.
Yay! I love that. And I think, the busyness, that is it. It literally cleared that mental load because, a lot of us that are listening to this podcast do have lots of things on their plates. And then so when everything kind of feels like it's about to fall over, like it's toppling because there's all the things and only so much time in a day. But, when you've got that mental load of, all the grocery shopping, I get my groceries delivered as well. So I don't even have to go and get it because that's an extra half an hour of my day that I don't have to spend doing that job or dragging kids around the supermarket, right? Because mama thought like it just is mental. And so, my grocery bill compared to your household, Maree, will look very differently. But at the same time, it is saving money. Like monthly did save me money. But with the wastage, it didn't. So you're right, pulling it back to the fortnightly. Yes, it adds a little bit more to the mental load, which I loved having monthly because there was even less mental load. But it saves me other stresses in terms of wastage and all of that. So yeah, it's around finding what works for you. And like I said, when we start planning and when we actually map out what's going to work, sometimes it just comes down to finding the actual spot where you land that actually does work for you. And like Lara said, she's going to email me every second Friday so that I can remember to order this stuff, because it's sometimes, again, that's another mental task that doesn't have to sit in my brain. Someone else is going to be like, oh, reminder. I'm like, oh, that's right, I need to do that today. So it's actually finding systems that work for you. And that's, I guess, what we're big on post-op in all of our coaching is it's not around making you comply to a certain program or live your life in a certain way, because that we know from lived experience, right, that doesn't work. But what it's about doing is finding the systems and the tools and the techniques that are actually going to help you live the best version of your life. And grocery shopping is a perfect example of that. I did want to talk around teeth today because we were chatting about that earlier, and I was like, we should talk about that on the podcast. So I have booked into the dentist for a consult about my actual teeth, not anything different, for like the first time since I was 18. So huge embarrassment factor to even acknowledge that. But do you know what? Over my 20s, like I just wasn't a priority. I was having babies and it wasn't about me. But yeah, I've got some dental stuff going on and I'm like, I need to have a dental appointment. And I said to Maree, is this self-care? And she's like, no. Well, it's not the kind of self-care of like actually just having a break and doing something nice for yourself. It is self-care in the fact that you're looking after yourself, but no. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it kind of is, because it's quite a big deal for me to even have done this. I love a good impulse decision, but equally it's something that I need to do. So I'm looking forward to, well, I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm looking forward to ticking that one off the list and at least knowing, not head in the sand, right? I feel like we talk about this a lot in the club around victim mentality, but part of that is even further is the pretending it's not even happening, and that happens without eating and everything. So like the dental issues that I've got going on, whilst they're not terrible or horrific, my mentally I've got to the point where I'm like, there's a very real possibility that this tooth is absolutely screwed. So I do need to do something about that. I can no longer pretend that that's not an issue. And so I have to deal with it. And I think, that it comes to that enough is enough moment. And a lot of us get to that and end up reaching for coaching for around eating and behaviors, because it's exactly the same, right? You get to the point where like, holy crap, I'm eating a whole block of chocolate again, or I'm eating a whole bag of chips, and the scales just keep going up and up and up, and enough is enough. I need to get a control on this because I know exactly where I'm going to end up, because you do. And so it's very much the same as going to the dentist. But equally, why I wanted to talk about teeth post-op is because of our lower nutritional intake, end up with like an increased risk of dental issues, because if you're not getting enough calcium, your body is actually going to leach it from your teeth and your bones, and so it's very, very real. And I hand on heart admit that I have not done very well by my teeth, but I'm owning that. That's not something that I'm blaming anyone else for. That is totally me. I might blame a little bit on my ADHD, but that's okay. It's still me. It's still part of who I am as a person, and I'm not making myself wrong. I'm not blaming myself. But equally, there needs to be a point where you start to take responsibility, and this is me taking responsibility and going to the dentist and finding out how much it's going to cost. It does come down to cost for me. Like I really feel like I just hate the idea, even though I can afford it. I just don't want to spend money on my teeth. And you know what, we all have those things. There's always something in someone's life. Like some people just don't want to spend money on their cars, right? You're like, but I just don't want to do that. I don't want to get tires. I know I need new tires, but I don't want to do it. And like we all have something there. And if that's coaching, that's cool. Like it is what it is. But equally, at some point you're going to get to the place where enough's enough and you actually have to. Your hand is going to get forced. And so yeah, just be aware that that's coming. Have you had some enough is enough moments, Maree? Like anything you want to share around this? Because it's very real. It shows up all the time.
Yeah, it definitely does. Nothing's actually jumping to mind, probably because my brain is just a little bit everywhere. But it's just really interesting though that it's, the things that we should spend money on to help ourselves kind of stay healthy, stay where we want, we don't almost, it's not that we don't think we're good enough for it, but we just prioritize other things and, other people, especially, your kids, your family, you're wanting to do that. But sometimes you don't actually realize how much extra mental load that is adding to you. And then, especially, if you think after surgery, and then that's where it goes to the regain. And then there's so much shame and you're just spiraling. And whereas if you had just kind of asked for help a little bit sooner, but sometimes you don't want to feel like you're the weak one, you want to be the strong one. So it's just really interesting how that's the same like with going to the dentist. Because I don't think anybody actually enjoys going to the dentist, but doing it is,
And I think that's my issue is like, why should I spend money on something that I don't enjoy?
Yeah. But then if you don't, you actually end up having to spend more money, right? So it's really interesting kind of how they are quite similar. But then we're happy to spend money on other things that are not healthy, and so it's just the way that we just as society, think of certain things, and everybody's different, of course, but there's just a lot of things like that. And it's like, well, what is your priority? Like, what is important to you? And sometimes it is, like, it can be quite hard and quite confronting at times to realize that. But if you think, well, if I keep doing what I'm doing, in 2 years' time, am I going to be happy? So sometimes you actually got to ask yourself that. But in terms of, what I've stopped, there is definitely, I stopped drinking alcohol because that was enough on that. But there's so many things I just can't even think about it. But it is interesting that it does sometimes take quite a bit to then make that decision. But also it can be scary, especially, coaching. It's, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to judge me? Like all of those
get
things.
told off. We hear that all the time, right?
Yeah. I know what I should be doing, so why I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I know that I should be, eating my protein, drinking my water, doing all of those things. So what are they going to tell me? There's so much misconception ultimately, and then just what those stories you're telling yourself. So which can make you avoid actually reaching out. But life can just be so amazing if you go to wherever you need to go to. And whether it's a dentist, whatever it is, it can be the doctors as well. Like, people put off things because they're just scared as well. So there's so many.
Like diabetes checks are a very real one that people are like, oh, I don't want to know because I feel like my doctor's going to tell me off for my blood sugars over the last 3 months. And that's like, that is a head in the sand mentality, right? Because it's not going to change the number. Like me not dealing with my dental issues, that's not going to change the outcome. If anything, it's going to make it worse because I'm not aware of it and I'm pretending it's not happening. And so, one of the great side effects of having surgery and potentially using the GLP-1 medications is that we have a somewhat reversal of diabetes, which is fantastic. But equally, long term, that doesn't necessarily stay there, especially if all the habits and stuff start creeping in. And so it's about being really real and honest with yourself. And that can be really confronting. We're seeing that in the club at the moment. Some of the stories that are popping out for people, we're actually getting confronted by what's going on. And that's not to scare you about the club because this work needs to be done. And it'll be done in your own time when you're ready. But it's actually around just acknowledging that there is stuff that you're pretending is not happening. And when we pretend it's not happening, it doesn't mean it's not actually happening as much as we'd like it not to happen. And so it's really around what are your coping skills, what are you doing, and why are you hiding from it? I think there was a really good part in your session, Maree, on Monday that really just leaned into what is the biggest thing that's actually holding you back? That's not what was said, but, there's an element of an emotion that is really sitting there that's holding you back from achieving what you should be achieving or what you want to be achieving. And so when you're not even acknowledging that it's sitting there, of course you can't change. Of course you're going to hit the same roadblocks over and over and over again. For me, I'm aware of a lot of the stories that I've been coming up around with the dentist, right? And I also have got to the point where I'm like, the consequence outweighs the benefit of putting my head in the sand at this point because I don't want to lose a tooth. I don't want to end up with a big, like, my face is my brand, right? I said that to you earlier, Maree. And you know, I don't want to end up with a whole tooth missing because I decided I was ignoring and pretending that this issue wasn't happening. And so, you know, I don't know what the dentist is going to say. I still could end up in that track, but the consequence is mine to own, right? Like, and so, you know, you've got no one else to blame but yourself in these situations, but living in that cycle of guilt and shame. I say game because of the combination of guilt and shame. But, you know, when we live in that cycle, it festers and it festers and it festers. And then you go back to that knee jerk of, well, I'm just going to eat to make myself feel better and pretend it's not happening. And it doesn't serve you. And actually, really, it's a form of self-harm, right? Like we've talked about that recently in the Cloud Show. And when you harm yourself, you know, that's a sign that your mental health isn't doing too good. And so whether you've even acknowledged that that's happening, there's a high chance that it could be. And this is not to confront you guys, but it's just, you know, the very ins and outs real of us, of our post-op journeys and sharing that. So, you know, there is no right or wrong. You can keep living in your delulu if you want to, like, that's cool. But equally know that there will be a consequence of that. Like there's always a consequence. And yeah, my dentist is a perfect example of that. And it could cost me a lot more than if I dealt with it when I first noticed the problem. And so, you know, just really start to look at what am I hiding from right now? Why and what is it getting me? Because it'll always be giving you something, right, Maree? Like there's always a payoff. You just might not be aware of it.
And it's also really hard because your brain's just so powerful. Like it will automatically go back to what has felt safe, how comfortable things have been, which is, you know, the way that you have dealt with things and how the way people have dealt with things in the past. If you're not going to actually make a change, that same thing's going to happen. So it's really important to acknowledge that, like that it's, you know, if you want to change something, you have to make a change.
Yeah.
You can't expect a different result.
What comes to mind is like jumping on a train, like the same train that you take every day to get to work or go into town or whatever you're doing, and expecting it to end up at a different place.
Yep.
Even though you're doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. And you're like, what, today I'm not going to go to work, and you still end up back at work.
Yeah.
And, you know, you need to actually choose to get on a different train or choose to do something different. But that takes conscious effort, and it takes being aware of why am I even going to work right now, or why am I even getting on this train? And, you know, we all have our reasons, right? There's plenty of reasons to stay doing the same behavior over and over and over again. Plenty of reasons and plenty of stories that you can justify it with. But at the end of the day, if it's hurting you, if it's causing you harm, then maybe we need to look at something different.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually I put on my Facebook page yesterday a post around what to pack in your hospital bag. Like what's the one thing that you really loved having in your hospital bag for surgery? So I thought I'd ask you, Maree, what is like some of your fave things that you took to hospital with you?
To be fair, I actually did not overthink that because when I did all my research, that's what I did, it said don't overpack. I am an overpacker. That is what I do. And so I definitely made sure I did not do that. My big one was really my phone charger, making sure it was long enough to reach. And, you know, and because then you also overthink, well, I overthought, you know, the clothes that I was wearing, and I was like, oh my gosh, how uncomfortable am I going to be? And, you know, and because, you know, when you're a lot bigger, you don't have as many clothes, and, you know, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, is this going to hurt me when I'm trying to walk? You know, all of those types of things. So I did not overpack at all. I didn't even take my own pillow. I was like, nope, I'm just, you know, gonna smash it there. But yeah, no, it was a phone charger. Because that I wanted when I was dozing in and out. Go on my phone and
imagine, like, I don't know, I don't know what I sent during those hours, so, you know, when you first post up, but I feel like there could be some regret. Like if you are having some interesting conversations, like you don't even know what you sent. So that can be pretty wild. So just make sure that if there are people you're not telling you're having surgery, maybe don't message them in the first few hours after surgery.
That should be nap time though in the end. But yeah.
Yeah, Absolutely. I actually, the next day after my surgery, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but being a nurse, right? I remember being in recovery and kind of like I don't know what I did, and I don't know if I like kind of half spoke and fell asleep, but the next day I had the recovery nurse pop in to say hi, to just kind of check on kind of thing, and I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry if I was bossy in recovery, because I used to work in there, like not in that exact one, like I went private for my surgery, but I was in recovery at the hospital and stuff. I was like, I'm so sorry if I was bossy, and she's like laughed, and she's like, no, you're fine. But like my brain was like, oh, I feel like I just like I need this right now, like give me this. Typical nurse, so because I didn't have a lot of faith in my ward nurse, to be fair. A little bit of knowledge sometimes is a hindrance, guys. Like just my blood pressure was quite low post-op, and I had a very new literally come from a rest home nurse who was nursing me in the first few hours, like on admission, and then she had me when I returned to the ward, and she didn't even know how to do an ECG, which is fine. If you don't know how to do an ECG, that's absolutely fine. But for me, I was like, this is like bread and butter. Like, I've been doing this for years. Like, I had to tell her where to put the leads and everything. And I was like, this is concerning. And so when I came back to the ward from recovery and my blood pressure was through the floor, I was like, you need to give me more fluids. Like, you need to increase my fluids, which is a really great way, guys, FYI, to get your blood pressure up if it is low, particularly after surgery. Otherwise, it can cause what we call hypovolemic shock, and causes people to pass out and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, we definitely need lots of fluids. And she had to get a senior nurse in, and I was like, I said I need some more fluids, and she's like, I agree, and I was like, cool. So they went and sorted that. But yeah, it was a pretty wild ride actually. And when you're sitting there being the patient, you're like, I have to make all these critical decisions myself because I've got this nurse who, bless her heart, was still learning, and I was like, you need to do this right now because this is not good. I can't remember what my systolic was, but it was quite low. I think it was in like the 70s or 80s, and I was like, I need some fluids now.
It's actually quite scary though to think, because I've got no medical experience. I just was fully trusting, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if something had happened, would they have known?
Well, you would hope so. I mean, there is I guess it depends on the hospital as well, but generally speaking, like at most hospitals, in the public system at least, there is standardized forms where you fill in blood pressure and stuff, and if it goes into certain ranges, it gets marked by points, and it's called like the early warning system, and so if it's kind of showing something deranged, usually you'd hope that the nurse would go and flag that with the doctor, be like, do you want us to do anything? But yeah.
I think
usually,
yeah.
But equally, yeah, this girl was obviously new, and she'd been nursing a long time, but she just had been rest home nursing, and it's a little bit different to surgical nursing, and that's okay. And everyone's going to start somewhere, but my case will be not unique, but not standard either. And that's just lucky that she had me. She had me to help. Otherwise, it would have just delayed theatre and stuff with showing her how to do the ECG and stuff, or her having to find someone else to help support her. But yeah, it wasn't a big deal. But it was just little things that you're like, oh man, I'm working. I even got offered a job actually.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, the manager of the hospital, she came down and saw me, and she's like, if you would like some work, I was like, I don't know, I think I'm good at the moment. It was night shift, and I was like, at this point I wasn't working shift work, and I was like, but I quite like what I'm doing. But yeah, so it's just funny how things skills in nursing can be quite transferable, but also there's a lot that people don't know. And so, if anything, kindness goes a long way, but if you are concerned for your health, do advocate. Like, it is really, really important. Even trying to talk in 3 words at once. Even those of you who are further along post-op, if there is something that's not sitting right or not feeling so good, maybe it's worth actually flagging that with a healthcare professional just to see, is this actually normal, or is this something I need to be worried about?
So that's one thing that I definitely have learned since having the surgery is I value myself now. So I advocate for myself and I know myself best. And so if I know that something's not right, then, I go and get referred to a specialist. So it's just so different. Whereas before, I think because, every time you go to the doctors, are always like, just lose weight. So then you
Yeah.
just, like you just avoid going. But now I'm just, I will fight for myself, advocate, because I'm worth it ultimately. But it's just so interesting that it took surgery for that. So
Yeah, there's a huge, I think that's not spoken about enough, but there is a huge transformation in how you view yourself when you start losing weight, right? And actually copious amounts of weight, not like just a little bit of weight, or and when you start to not identify yourself as someone who's a dieter or someone who's on the, losing weight, when you're actively like, actually, this is who I am now, which is very cool. But there is a huge change in perspective and knowing that value and knowing about how to advocate for yourself, because I feel like a lot of us, when we are bigger, it really comes down to everyone else must be right. I feel like that was a big story for me. Like, everyone else must be right. I must be wrong because, I don't deserve to have an opinion, or I'm not worthy, or whatever those stories were. Obviously I don't sit in that land anymore because I love what I do and I'm the boss, Maree. But yeah, it really comes back to how you show up in the world, and it really does change after surgery. For those that don't know, some of the club does know, but I'm looking at doing some more study and actually approached a doctor that I used to work with to do some part-time work with him for my studies, for no other reason other than I need the extra hands-on patient work. And it was really cool walking into an interview because it was kind of an interview, it was more of a meeting, but there was also a panel, like there was 3 of them and me. But it was really cool compared to, this was probably my first actual nursing job interview. I was trying to think since I had surgery. I think it was. And because I was in another workplace and then I ended up starting the coaching side of things. Actually no, that's a lie. I did have an interview when I was working for Healthline, but actually face to face, this was the first job interview that I actually walked in and felt really comfortable and confident in myself and the skills that I was bringing forward. Whereas in the past, like when I was working for when I was a prison nurse, which was really cool, really interesting job, I came in as, I think it was 3 or 4 years post-registration at this point. I'm over a decade now. But yeah, I went for this job interview and they went, actually, from what you've said, we really like you and actually we want to pay you top scale because of the skills and everything you bring. I didn't think I was worth that. And I was quite happy to take the paycheck, don't get me wrong, but I came into that interview from a very low self-worth. I hadn't had surgery, like really low self-worth, self-esteem, and just not feeling like I really was worth it. Whereas walking into this meeting with the GP that I knew, it was like it wasn't even about money for me, to be fair, because that's not why I want to work there. But it was really around, it went into it with a even par, like I felt really even and like I bring a lot of value. This is what I can do and the benefits that I can bring. And if you want me, cool. If you don't, that's fine too. Like I'm not needy. I'm not walking into this like, oh man, I really need a job. But it was really cool to be on the even footing and have that self-confidence that old me definitely didn't have. And yes, I've got obviously more experience under my belt now, but equally, I still think if I was the bigger person, I would have been sitting there in my insecurities a lot more. I would have been sitting there going, oh my goodness, who am I? Who am I to ask for a job that doesn't even exist? Because this job doesn't even exist. Like, they're literally creating it because I reached out to them and went, hey, this is what I'd like to do. And so, old men probably wouldn't have even reached out. I'm like, there's not even a job going there. Like, why? What are you doing? But this version of me is not like that at all anymore, and it's really, really cool, and it's really nice to even acknowledge that difference, because it is huge. And I know you've had similar experience with your work, eh, Maree?
Yes, it's just so amazing the confidence that you gain, when you start really believing and knowing how much you're worth, because like everybody's got so many amazing strengths, and it's so cool to be able to share it. But if you have that confidence, and I'm quite similar in the sense that before surgery, there was, I even just going to family occasions, just overthink that, and then also what am I going to wear as well. But like all of the stories that you've told yourself, which a lot of them, is I'm not worthy. Like that's such a big thing. It's too much, things like that. And now it's like, nah, actually I'm not, like I'm really amazing. I bring so much to whatever situation it is. And not everybody's going to love you, and that's okay. But still, like you bring so much. Like it's amazing, and I love to also hear that from others. I love to hear their stories. It's just so cool. But that confidence you get, that self-worth you get, that self-trust, it's just also amazing.
I think one of the biggest habits that I've struggled to kind of break post-surgery is picking at my clothes, like trying to get it to sit right.
Yes. I think it's because it's also a centre thing. I do that as well. I like things centered.
Yeah, but equally, mine definitely comes back to this is too tight, too clingy. It's going to sit in the wrong place, and I don't want to show off the bits that I don't like. So I've had to really consciously work on that. I don't think I'm perfect yet, but I do notice it, and I'm like, why are you doing that? But equally, it is a really ingrained habit, and so it's really interesting because I know exactly where it stems from, right? And yes, there is an element of the intended, but equally, it's like I don't. I remember actually as a teenager, because I got really big boobs really early, and I didn't like that because everyone else was, kind of AB cups when I was already like a CD. And that's fine, like cool. But I didn't like the look, and I don't know if it was like a generational thing when it was happening, but I really went for the mono boob look because I didn't like when like bras kind of like cupped inwards. So I would make sure like I was wearing like like the tube singlets and stuff that really just gave you that one mono look. And that was kind of mindset to get out of as well, like to be like, oh, I can actually embrace and look wonderful and love my boobs, because for the longest time I didn't, and I just felt wrong, and I felt out of place because I had bigger boobs than everyone else. And so it's really interesting when you start to look at your insecurities, because I know that probably a lot of those girls probably looked at my boobs and went, wow, they're awesome, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just, I'm sure plenty of guys thought the same, but it's but your perspective and getting in your head and telling yourself that these parts of yourself are wrong, it can be really crippling. And so, working really hard and changing some of those stories is kind of key. And, we in the club, we very rarely talk about weight, to be fair. Like it's not something that comes up all that often. We celebrate your losses, absolutely. But actually what we're looking at is, how are you viewing you? How are you showing up for you? What is the version of you that you want to be? And so, dealing with these stories is so much more important than the number on the scale, right? The number on the scale is kind of inconsequential if you hate yourself.
Yeah, it's just data. It's nothing more. And it's not going to change how you feel. But it's interesting though on the clothes thing. So like, because when I go swimming, and then I can see on my shorts, like because I've lost quite a bit of weight, so I'm quite a bit saggy, but I just embrace it. Like I'm just like, oh my gosh, check out my body and what it's done, and how I'm still able, to do aerobics, and so it's just really interesting. But I do find though, when I'm walking, I am kind of pulling my shorts down a bit. So I do fully get that. But equally, it's, like I know that it's just something that has been for so long, so I don't really beat myself up that that's what I'm doing. I just remind myself of how great my body is, that it's, able to do all of this. And of course, when you lose so much weight, you are going to have a bit of saggy skin, and that's okay because your body like has lost that weight. Like And it's so amazing. It's so
Yeah,
crazy.
I take saggy skin any day over
Yes.
a skin full of fat, right? Because that's what I spent all the money on surgery for. That's what I wanted. That was the outcome. Obviously, bouncing back would be nice, but equally, we all went into it knowing that there's only so far skin can bounce back.
Yeah. But it's that whole mind work though, so if you don't put it in there, you are going to keep being like so, self-conscious, dreading everything, like everything. Life's not going to be fun, and it's still going to be negative. You're still going to be in your head using all of that energy to tell yourself how wrong you are, and you don't want to live like that.
No, life's too short.
Yes.
Let the haters hate, but don't hate yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, quotable.
Yes.
But yeah, because there's enough hatred in this world without you doing it to yourself. Life's short. You've only got one, as far as we know, one life, and just live it to the max. Enjoy what you've got. Enjoy how amazing. Like even celebrate. They talk about after babies about how you should celebrate the fact that your body grew this amazing human being, right? Your body also went through a huge transformation. So, celebrate the fact that your body was able to do that and do it well. And then we can look at all the other stuff that's underpinning that. But, celebrate it because it is amazing. And how proud of you would past you be? Like, past me would be so friggin' proud of me. And I should be like, this worked. Like, I'm so glad that I pushed go on this because I didn't know for sure. I didn't know if you'd be successful, but I really hoped you did. And I had faith in you and you did it. And that's really cool.
Yes, it's so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh,
so very, very cool. All right. Well, I think that probably is a good place to wrap up that podcast episode. I hope we've kind of gone on a bit of a jump around, but it's been really, really good. If you are struggling to hit your protein, which is one of our fundamentals that we teach in the Success Club, please do grab yourself some BariBody Tasteless Protein Powder. That is our sponsor of this show, and so we absolutely love it. Everyone uses it, so don't miss out on being part of our big Bari fan that loves BariBody because it is absolutely incredible. Completely tasteless, dissolves in hot and cold, and it is just amazing. Everyone who tries it loves it. So yeah, don't miss out because it is going to be game changing for you. And if you are interested in joining our Success Club that we talked about in this episode or any other coaching, I will check the link below so that you can reach out to us and have a chat with Maree. She is wonderful and she will talk you through what your options are and talk around what's going on for you and how we can best support you because that's what we're all about. But yeah, thank you so much, Maree, for jumping on another episode. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day and we'll catch you in the next episode.
See ya.
Bye.
Right. So good. See, did it.